cause problems. I was trying to let you stay there. She's just got up from a long nap. So I was hoping that I wouldn't have to do this, but I am in fact going to have to do this. Oh my. Oh my. Oh, there you go. Yeah, you just stay down there. That's a good place for you. On the floor at my feet. That's a good place for you. I was appointed to rule over you, cat. Let's see here. How does it say it way back in Genesis? What's the exact terminology, at least in English? It says, rule over the fish of the sea. You're not a fish. And the birds of the air. You're not a bird. And over every living creature that moves along the ground. Well, I'm supposed that definitely counts you. You are a living creature that moves along the ground. I have been given permission, an appointment, a task, a mandate straight from God to rule over you. So the place for you is on the floor at my feet. I don't think Lily cares. I don't think Lily the cat is worried about that at all. That is not something that Lily the cat is going to waste her time thinking about. She has more important things to think about, like sleeping and eating. And that's all Lily ever thinks about, is food and sleep. She's Garfield. If you know what Garfield the cat is in the comic strips, I mean, Lily is very much Garfield the cat. Okay, so the Lord said to Moses, command the Israelites and say to them, when you enter Canaan, the land that will be allotted to you as an inheritance will have these boundaries. So now we are specifying the extent of the physical land that God is allotting to these people. Your southern side will include some of the desert of Zin along the border of Edom. On your east, your southern boundary will start from the end of the Salt Sea, that is the Dead Sea, cross south of the Scorpion Pass, continue on to Zin and go south of Kadesh Barnea. Then it will go to Hazar Adar and over to Asmon, where it will turn, join the Wadi of Egypt, and end at the sea. That's the Mediterranean Sea. Your western boundary will be the coast of the Great Sea. That's the Mediterranean Sea. This will be your boundary on the west. That's it, simple enough. For your northern boundary, run a line from the Great Sea to Mount Hor, and from Mount Hor to Lebo Hamath. Then the boundary will go to Zedad, continue to Ziphron, and end at Hazar Enon. This will be your boundary on the north. For your eastern boundary, run a line from Hazar Enon to Shepham. The boundary will go down from Shepham to Riblah on the east side of Ain, and continue along the slopes east of the Sea of Kinnereth. Then the boundary will go down along the Jordan and end at the Salt Sea. This will be your land with its boundaries on every side. I've never been there. I have never seen these places with my eyes. I could look up a map of what these places look like today, or where we think these lines were back in 3400 BC or so. This is getting near 1400 BC, 3,400 years ago. This is written around 1406 BC, 40 years after the Exodus. So I can look at a map and see where the lines were as we believe they were based on this information today, how we interpret that. I've never been there, never seen these places, so I can't tell you with first-hand experience what it looks like or what it is, but we'll just have to trust the people who have been there for that. Moses commanded the Israelites, assign this land by lot as an inheritance. The Lord has ordered that it be given to the 9.5 tribes, because the families of the tribe of Reuben, the tribe of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh have received their inheritance. These 2.5 tribes have received their inheritance on the east side of the Jordan of Jericho, toward the sunrise. The Lord said to Moses, these are the names of the men who are to assign the land for you as an inheritance. Because Moses himself is not going to do that. He's not going to go into the land with them. Okay, so he's not going to be the one who actually oversees this project. So here are the 2 men who are. Eleazar the priest and Joshua son of Nun. And appoint 1 leader from each tribe to help assign the land. These are their names. Caleb son of Jephunneh from the tribe of Judah. Shemuel son of Ammihud from the tribe of Simeon. Eladad son of Kislon from the tribe of Benjamin. Buki son of Jogli from the tribe of Dan, the leader from the tribe of Dan. Haniel, son of Ephod, the leader from the tribe of Manasseh, son of Joseph, so the other half of Manasseh that's not already in its land. Kemuel, son of Shiftan, the leader from the tribe of Ephraim, son of Joseph. Elizaphan, son of Parnak, the leader from the tribe of Zebulun. Paltiel, son of Azan, the leader from the tribe of Issachar. Ahihud, son of Shelomi, the leader from the tribe of Asher. Pedahel, son of Ammihud, the leader from the tribe of Naphtali. These are the men the Lord commanded to assign the inheritance of the Israelites in the land of Canaan. On the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho, the Lord said to Moses, "Command the Israelites to give the Levites towns to live in from the inheritance the Israelites will possess." He said he was going to do this. The Levites themselves are not going to have a land inheritance, but they are going to have towns to live in scattered throughout the entire country. And give them pasture lands around the towns. Then they will have towns to live in and pasture lands for their cattle, flocks, and all their other livestock. The pasture lands around the towns that you give the Levites will extend out 1,500 feet from the town wall. Outside the town, measure 3,000 feet on the east side, 3,000 on the south side, 3,000 on the west, and 3,000 on the north of the town in the center. They will have this area as pasture land for their towns. 6 of the towns you give the Levites will be cities of refuge, to which a person who has killed someone may flee. In addition, give them 42 other towns. They're going to have 48 towns total. In all, you must give the Levites 48 towns together with their pasture lands. The towns you give the Levites in the land the Israelites possess are to be given in proportion to the inheritance of each tribe. Take many towns from a tribe that has many, but few from one that has few. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you cross the Jordan into Canaan, select some towns to be your cities, or some towns to be your cities of refuge, to which a person who has killed someone accidentally may flee. They will be places of refuge from the avenger, the family redeemer, the one who's supposed to buy back family members in trouble, so that a person accused of murder may not die before he stands trial before the assembly. These 6 towns you give will be your cities of refuge. Give 3 on this side of the Jordan, in the 2.5 tribe inheritance of Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, and 3 in Canaan as cities of refuge. These 6 towns will be a place of refuge for Israelites, aliens, and any other people living among them, so that anyone who has killed another accidentally can flee there. If a man strikes someone with an iron object so that he dies, he is a murderer. So he hit someone with intent to kill. We would call this the difference between murder and manslaughter. The murderer shall be put to death. Or if anyone has a stone in his hand that could kill, and he strikes someone so that he dies, he is a murderer. The murderer shall be put to death. This would be death by stoning. That's how they did it. Or if anyone has a wooden object in his hand that could kill, and he hits someone so that he dies, he is a murderer. The murderer shall be put to death. The avenger of blood, that's the family redeemer, shall put the murderer to death. When he meets him, he shall put him to death. If anyone with malice aforethought, that's a legal term in our day and time, shoves another or throws something at him intentionally so that he dies, or if in hostility he hits him with his fist so that he dies, that person shall be put to death. He is a murderer. The avenger of blood shall put the murderer to death when he meets him. But if, without hostility, someone suddenly shoves another, or throws something at him unintentionally, or without seeing him, drops a stone on him that could kill him and he dies, then since he was not his enemy and he did not intend to harm him, the assembly must judge between him and the avenger of blood according to these regulations. So the person guilty of manslaughter flees to cities of refuge. The avenger of blood comes after him. They have a trial. The avenger of blood is not given permission to simply kill the person outright. They have a trial. The assembly decides what happens, and if the accused is determined to have been a murderer, the avenger of blood may kill him, and if not, there's something else that's going to happen. The assembly must protect the one accused of murder from the avenger of blood and send him back to the city of refuge to which he fled. So I guess this assembly is not going to be in that city of refuge itself. I'm not sure if it's where it is exactly going to be, but he must stay there until the death of the high priest, who was anointed with the holy oil. But if the accused ever goes outside the limits of the city of refuge to which he has fled, and the avenger of blood finds him outside the city, the avenger of blood may kill the accused without being guilty of murder. The accused must stay in his city of refuge until the death of the high priest. Only after the death of the high priest may he return to his home property. These are to be the legal requirements for you throughout the generations to come, wherever you live. Anyone who kills a person is to be put to death as a murderer only on the testimony of witnesses. But no one is to be put to death on testimony of only one witness. So you're going to need more than one person, because one person may have an agenda. One person may be telling something just to get somebody who doesn't like into trouble. You're going to need more than one witness, more than one person saying the same thing in order to accuse and convict someone of murder. Do not accept a ransom for the life of a murderer who deserves to die. He must surely be put to death. So if you're accused of murder, you cannot pay for your life via money or some other kind of ransom and be saved and have your life saved that way. Not accept a ransom for anyone who has fled to a city of refuge, and so allow him to go back and live in his own land before the death of the high priest. Do not pollute the land where you are. Bloodshed pollutes the land. We saw that all the way back in Genesis 6, when the violence that covered the earth polluted the land. And God had to cleanse the land by sending the flood. And then afterward made a prohibition on the shedding of blood by saying, whoever sheds the blood of man by land shall his blood be shed. So there was a connection between the sin that occurred on the earth before the flood, the judgment of the flood itself, and then the prohibition against bloodshed after the flood. So the earth at the time, the land was polluted with the bloodshed of all the carnage and violence that was going on before the flood. So we've seen that concept of bloodshed polluting the land all the way back to the very beginning. An atonement cannot be made for the land on which blood has been shed, except by the blood of the one who shed it. Do not defile the land where you live and where I dwell, for I, the Lord, dwell among the Israelites. So the city of refuge concept was the closest thing they really had in their culture to a term of incarceration. You weren't really in prison if you were in a city of refuge, but you weren't allowed to leave either until your sentence was over, and your sentence was the lifespan of the current high priest. Generally speaking, the high priest would have been an older individual who wouldn't have been alive too many more years. So we're not necessarily talking about a long life sentence. It could have been 20 years or whatever. But you're talking generally about an older fellow who would not have been alive too much longer after the sentence. Kind of like our cardinals or our popes today. But this is the closest thing to their culture. Most of the time, the murderers themselves, if they were found guilty of murder, they were simply to be put to death by stoning or other things. We've already seen the death penalty given for, or they were to be cut off from the land. They were to be cut off. If it was something minor than that, they could make restitution by basically paying it back. Those are the ways those are the ways they dealt with crime, if we want to call it the word crime, in their culture. I'm not even sure they really understood crime in the same way that we do. But the idea, the penalties were either paying it back if it was a monetary thing where you stole swindled someone out of something, money, land, or possessions, or whatever. You paid it back and added a fifth of a value to it. Or you got cut out. If it was something more serious, you may have been cast out of the community, just banished, sent into exile, or the death penalty, cut off in the sense of being executed by stoning. The closest thing to like a period of incarceration where you were confined for a while is here in this city of refuge concept, where if you were guilty of manslaughter but not murder, you could run to the city of refuge. The avenger of blood would come after you anyway, but if you were in the city of refuge, he was not permitted to kill you and avenge the blood that you shed, until after an assembly could be held and it would be proven whether or not, based on testimony of witnesses, that you committed murder and manslaughter. And if you were found to have just been an accidental killing, you were allowed to live as long as you stayed within that city of refuge until the death of the high priest. So that would have been like their prison sentence. They didn't really have anything resembling prisons other than that. This also wasn't a place that you could go to avoid consequences. Like one of the, we've had this concept of sanctuary cities in our culture today, and we have partially based this on the idea of cities of refuge, but it's not really the same thing. At least in practical working out of it as the years have gone on, it's not. We have come to view these sanctuary cities as places where you can just kind of go and hide indefinitely from the authorities without having to face an assembly. The city of refuge here was a place where you could avoid being killed by the one whose duty actually was to kill you. It was the avenger of blood was not wrong to seek your blood. He was supposed to do that. Okay, he was specifically supposed to go out there and shed your blood on behalf of the blood that you shed. So you go to the city of refuge and you're protected from him until it can be determined whether or not you are guilty of murder or not, an accidental killing, manslaughter we would call it today. And if you were guilty of manslaughter, if you're guilty of murder, he could still go ahead and kill you. I mean, that would, that was that was an avenged killing. If you're guilty of manslaughter, you're safe from being killed, but you have to stay within the city of refuge until the time your sentence is done. So it's not the same thing as going into a sanctuary city and just like disappearing. It's like hiding out amongst the city and never having to actually face a trial or an assembly to decide what to do with you. So the concept of our modern day sanctuary cities really is not equal in function to what the cities of refuge did back then. One more chapter of the book of Numbers and then we're done and we can move on to Deuteronomy. And this goes back to the Zelophehad's daughter incident from earlier. We're not done talking about that yet. The family heads of the clans of Gilead, son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, who were from the clan to the descendants of Joseph, came and spoke before Moses and the leaders, the heads of the Israelite families. They said, "When the Lord commanded my Lord to give the land as an inheritance to the Israelites by lot, he ordered you to give the inheritance of our brother Zelophehad to his daughters." Remember, he was the guy who had 5 daughters but no sons. Now, suppose they marry men, so they are all unmarried at this point, apparently. Suppose they marry men from other Israelite tribes. Then their inheritance will be taken from our ancestral inheritance and added to that of the tribe they marry into. And so part of the inheritance allotted to us will be taken away. When the year of Jubilee for the Israelites comes, their inheritance will be added to that of the tribe into which they marry, and their property will be taken from the tribal inheritance of our forefathers. So there's a loophole in the law. So the Zelophehad's daughters themselves already drew Moses' attention to a weakness in the law, and he amended it based on the Lord's instructions. And now these people, other tribesmen in the clan of Manasseh, are bringing Moses' attention to a loophole that the previous amendment created. So now we have to close that loophole, fix that up. Then at the Lord's command, Moses gave this order to the Israelites. What the tribe of the descendants of Joseph is saying is right. So previously, Zelophehad's daughters were correct in what they were saying, and now their other tribesmen of the clan are correct in what they're saying. Both of these are serious issues and need to be addressed. This is what the Lord commands for Zelophehad's daughters and any incidents in the future where this applies. They may marry anyone they please as long as they marry within the tribal clan of their father. No inheritance in Israel, any man they please, obviously, not just any one. No inheritance in Israel is to pass from tribe to tribe. For every Israelite shall keep the tribal land inherited from his forefathers. Every daughter who inherits land in any Israelite tribe must marry someone in her father's tribal clan, so that every Israelite will possess the inheritance of his fathers. No inheritance may pass from tribe to tribe, for each Israelite tribe is to keep the land it inherits. Very tribal-based society. You gotten that impression yet? So Zelophehad's daughters did as the Lord commanded Moses. Zelophehad's daughters, Mahlah, Tirzah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Noah, married their cousins on their father's side. They married within the clan to the descendants of Manasseh, son of Joseph, and their inheritance remained in their father's clan and tribe. I don't know if that all happened before Moses died or not. That may have happened. I'm not sure. Apparently, they were without, at least some of these girls, maybe all 5 of them, were apparently unmarried at this point in time. Moses only has a couple months of life left. I'm not sure if they all got married in that brief amount of time before their husbands went into fight in the land, or if this happened afterwards. In which case, obviously, someone else is writing this down, including in here. I'm not sure. This may be another example of a detail that was included after Moses' death, but I don't know. These are the commands and regulations the Lord gave through Moses to the Israelites on the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. And that's something else that could have been added by an editor later. As I said earlier, the book of Numbers, of all the books in the works of Moses, is probably the one that has potentially the most non-Mosaic material in it. But even that would have been a fairly small portion of it. It would have been added on by somebody later on, kind of editing it, possibly. But even there, you only have a few instances. Okay, that's the book of Numbers. We're almost done with the works of Moses. We're 4 out of 5 of the books of the way through. We got to get now through the book of Deuteronomy, which actually is pretty straightforward. I like the book of Deuteronomy because it takes the material that we've been reading about from the middle of Exodus through now, which is all very kind of loopy and repetitive. You know, I've talked before about how I like this material is kind of like arranged in these chunks. And it's not, it doesn't seem to, there is an order to it. We looked at that when we read Leviticus, and we saw that there was an order to the arrangement, but it doesn't mesh with what we would consider a proper order. It's not straightforward like we would like it to be. You know, it's very structural, very stylistic, very ancient, basically. But Deuteronomy is pretty straightforward. It takes the material that we've pretty much already read and kind of talked about and looped around and mentioned several times, and talked about some of it here and some of it there, and kind of just, you know, looped around in circles, talking about the same thing over and over again, kind of repetitively. But it takes all that, and it does kind of lay it out in a more straightforward, start-to-finish fashion, which is a little bit easier for our modern minds to comprehend and follow. It's basically going to be Moses' farewell address to the people. I don't know how long he spent composing this, if he wrote it all down, say a month beforehand, and then read it to them out loud in one day. Well, you know, we'll look at that, but it's basically Moses' farewell address to the people. Moses is about to die, and he's giving them a recap of their history and giving them further instructions for their future and warnings and prophecies and stuff for their future. It's because of that material, the prophecies and warnings of the future, that the smart people today will tell you that Deuteronomy wasn't written by Moses. But the weird thing is that Deuteronomy, of all the books in the Bible, is the one that most strongly identifies itself as being written by Moses. So it is just kind of one of those things where we are just so convinced that we're smarter that we have to invent these scenarios or fabricate these fictions because we feel like we need to know more than Moses does. We need to know more than these ancient people do because we're smarter than them. And that really is ultimately kind of where a lot of it comes from. But we'll get to that when we get to that, and that'll be next time.